Good morning. How do we have so many comments already? Wow, wow, wow. Hello. Um, good morning, Gigi. Good morning, Alex, Jenny. I love that you guys can communicate and connect before I even log on. A miracle. I have had a busy week. My daughters turned 14 and 16 this week. And good morning. So we have had, as much as you can celebrate in a quarantine, which we're kind of still in. Good morning, Mo from Kalispell, Montana. I've been up there one time and it is gorgeous. Good morning. So, yeah, we've had a full busy week of birthday celebrations, 14 and 16. And to think that they were only 2 and 4 when all of this started. It is, oh, good morning, Jane Nell, and 15, happy birthday to your son. Um, it's been, I don't know, I find blessings in the quarantine in a weird way. I am fortunate that I work from home, so it didn't have a huge effect on me. But I don't know, this age, I feel horrible for my kids, but we've made the best of it, and they're troopers. And last night at dinner, um, my oldest McKenna was saying, I understand what you mean about when people haven't had any adversity in their life, any trials and tribulations, how they sometimes they have a really difficult time coping when things hit them. And so she was, I don't know, it was just such a mature conversation. And she was talking about a friend who's having a really hard time right now, and that she's never really had anything horrible happen to her in her life. And I think she was comparing the different coping mechanisms or toolboxes and how she's trying to help her friend through this. And it just, I don't know, some proud mom moments this week when I look at what they've been through and then where they are today. And a blessing in disguise. Yeah, there are some blessings in all of this craziness that is our world right now, and the topics that have been raised, the communication on these important topics, world events. And yeah, so I agree with you on those points as well. Good morning, Carolyn and Alex. Couple of things. I'm going to look at the May calendar. I start my coach training program in May, and Gigi is going to be in my coach training program, which I'm so excited about. I think she can teach portions of it. She is just a brilliant, brilliant woman, and I'm happy to have her in the program. And so my calendar is going to get really busy really quick. I'm still going to try to do these every Friday, no changes. However, it may be a little bit shorter than normal because I teach a class for the program right afterwards. And I do still have a couple of spaces left if you are interested. I think when we counted yesterday, we have 2, maybe 3. And you would just go to HC for high conflict divorcecoach.com. And I do want to clarify, so many people, I've received some angry messages that we labeled it high conflict because in the world of domestic violence, people don't like that terminology because it gives us blame. When somebody is labeled a high conflict divorce, it's implying that both parties are high conflict, both parties are equally to blame. And so a huge part of my promotions and education will be that it only takes one person to create a high conflict divorce, because the reality, it's almost the if you can't beat them, join them mentality. in a weird way, because the reality is that is the label that the courts are going to continue using. We're not going to change that. I hear that label thrown out every single time I watch court proceedings. We will not change that. But we can work to educate them that it only takes one person. And so that they can start connecting the dots and looking further into these cases. So I stand behind our name. These cases are high conflict, but it doesn't mean that both people are equally responsible. And the study out of Santa Clara University is the first solid piece or platform that we have to begin educating on this issue. And so that is one of the big promotions that I'm doing, is that high conflict can be one person. So good morning, do no harm from Indiana. Okay, let's dive into the questions, but I have to tell you something important before I do that. Kira's Law. If you are in New York, or if you have friends, family members, if you're in any social media groups in New York, we have to get this passed. When Kira's Law is passed in New York, it then makes it easier for us to pass Kira's Law in all 50 states. And Jacqueline Franchetti is an amazing woman. She is out there moving mountains and protecting children with this legislation, these bills that she's creating. And the first stop is New York. So even if you aren't in New York and this bill won't help you, it will eventually. And even if it's not our cases, it's for our kids, it's for future generations. I reached out to Christy Brinkley this week, and for those of you who don't know, she's really the reason that One Mom's Battle exists as it does today. We connected back in 2012, right after I started One Mom's Battle, and she has been instrumental in promoting it, in encouraging me to write my first book. And so she is very much a very good friend of OMB, and always willing to go the extra mile whenever she shares her platform with us. And that's an amazing thing. And so I reached out to her this week and asked her to share information about Kira's Law in New York, and she did. And so it's received a lot of exposure right now, but Jacqueline Franchetti needs our help to ensure that her little girl, her message and legacy will have purpose and will protect other children. She was murdered by her father, and it was absolutely preventable. And so I beg you to go, you can go onto the One Mom's Battle website. We actually have a tab now, and it says Kira's Law. So we make it really easy. So anyone you know in New York, I don't even care if it's a third cousin, ask them to check that. They put in their address. It tells them who to contact. She has template letters. She makes it so easy for us to support her efforts. So thank you very, very, very much. And yeah, let's do this. Kira's Law is so important and will change the family court system. First question, what is the most valuable documentation to present in court? That's going to be so different for everybody, and I want to issue my disclaimer. I'm not qualified to give legal advice. I'm not an attorney. We are a community of survivors who come together and talk through these issues. I love sharing, my personal journey through the court system, and also things that I've learned as an advocate for the past decade. So what is the most valuable documentation in court? That's a loaded question. It can come down to your judge. That's one example. And that's why I encourage people to really pay attention and If you're able to watch Zoom proceedings with your court, get to know what matters to your judge. Credibility in some courtrooms is huge. And the judge, as soon as somebody is deemed to be credible or not credible, that can really shift a case. It's not the way, that's not, everywhere. But I know in my case, after about year 2, when the judge started realizing that, everything my ex said was a lie. But more so when my ex was, you know, lying directly to the court, then they took interest. The statutes in each state, make sure you have those printed out, the best interest statutes, and so you can reference those and find out, if there's anything as you go through that statute, are there any points that relate directly to your case? Those would be something I would want to highlight. Patterns of behavior, how my kids are being affected. Unfortunately, people are allowed to be jerks and a-holes in this, there's no law against absolute jerks being parents. And that's where the victim blaming mentality comes into play. The court looks at us and goes, you married this person. It's not our job to fix. And that's wrong. And that's a whole nother topic, but it is reality. And that's where radical acceptance comes into play, managing your expectations appropriately, but showing how this person directly affects your child. Not just that they're a jerk, not just that they're a liar, how your child is being affected, and neutral third-party statements, pediatricians, teachers, people in the community who have witnessed issues. Those can be very helpful. I know they were for me. But your documentation, every single thing needs to be documented. Unfortunately, it becomes almost a full-time job. And also, please read the comments off to the side while I'm talking, because the reality is all of us, I know what I know over the past decade, but we all bring different experiences and expertise to this equation, and there's no rule book for it. So we learn from each other. And that's so, and Gigi's bringing up a good point. Some people are not appointed a judge until the week or the day of court. That makes it really hard. And in those cases, you almost have to become an expert on every single player in your entire court system, so that when you find out who that judge is, you flip to page 8 and you're like, oh, here's my write-up of everything I've been able to find out about that judge. And again, I'm going to Kelly, I see you're mentioning something about EMDR. I want to read that in a second. I lost my train of thought because that excited me. I've had a crazy experience with the EMDR. I actually ended up calling it off last week because it was too much. Okay, but going back, the judge. You can go to, page 8, this is everything, and the One Mom's Battle state chapters. Some of those chapters are super small. I mean, there's 5 people in them. We have the potential with here on our outreach with YouTube, the One Mom's Battle Facebook page, the public page, I think there's 60,000 people on there. If we were to break up those people and get them into their own private chapters, there is power in numbers. You can learn so much from each other. And I know one of the things that a lot of the graduates from my coach training program who are active in their state chapters have been setting up Zoom calls for the group members to talk, to connect. Some of the groups do that when legislation comes up. They've band together, and really become a powerful voice. There is so much potential in these groups. And so I really encourage you to join your chapter of One Mom's Battle. And to join, you just go to OMB for One Mom's Battle, ombchapters.com. It'll take you right there. Everything you need to know. I screen very heavily anyone who comes into the group because I can't, it's not completely, perfect, but I try to do my part because I want it to be a safe place where you can openly talk about these things. That would be a great place to say, hey, I just got assigned judge so and so. What do they care about? And trying to formulate and personalize our cases, unfortunately, to fit the judge's bias. That becomes a big part of it. There's so much. This topic is such a huge but important topic. So EMDR, I wanted to read that comment. Yeah, my EMDR experience, Kelly says, good morning from DC. Thank you for mentioning your experience with EMDR. I was hesitant to try, but I gave it a try this week. After hearing you speak of it, it was so, so helpful. That's fantastic. I'm so happy to know that. My experiences recently have taken me down for 3-4 days. It's just, there's so much trauma. And it's heavy. It's a lot of work. But I'm happy to be unpacking it through EMDR, and hopefully it will, yeah, hopefully it's going to help. I feel like it is already. So, good morning, Dina. Dina is tuning in from Minnesota, and she is a graduate of my coach training program. Happy to have you here. Number 2, here's another documentation question. Hi, Lisa. Documentation post judgment. Is it even worth it to continue documenting? Big yes. All capital letters, bold writing. There is no final decree or judgment that is going to make the other party healthy. I have been in court somewhere between 5 and 10 times since my final custody orders. Unfortunately, I don't believe there's anything final in family court until your kids turn 18 and age out of the system. And even then, I was talking to a friend this morning, and her kids are college age, and it still continues for some people post 18. So, but in this situation, related to your question, absolutely. You never quit documenting. You never know what's around the next corner. And I am always planning for my next court date. Thankfully, I don't have to do that anymore. But when I was still in it, you never know these are unpredictable, unhealthy people, and you never know when you're going to file. And in fact, I used to keep I call it my family court wish list. So I would, as things came up that were problematic in my current orders, I would jot them down. What do I want changed if I have to go back to court again? So it was kind of preparing a list for the future. Because sometimes, I've seen people spend a heck of a lot of money to get really solid court orders, only to realize a few days later that there are so many gray areas in there. And we know that the narcissist or sociopath they have special goggles that allow them to hone in on loopholes, gray areas, areas where it's not really tight. And so you're always going to find areas that need to be tightened up and improved or completely changed, because these people are so skilled at finding gray areas and manipulating the heck out of them. So, good morning, Dawn. And yes, good morning, good morning. And I see Lynn. Yes. Good morning, DC area also. I hope everybody's in their little DC group up there for One Mom's Battle. It's a very tiny little group, but I really want to grow it. Okay. How do I prepare for mediation with a narcissist? I'm going to plug just in case anybody wants to go more in depth. I do have an online course for documentation and also mediation, and you can use the code, I forget what the YouTube code is. You can use OMB 20, no, OMB thank you to save 20% off. So OMB thank you, and you'll save on any of the online courses. But mediation, I have a much different perspective than most people do on mediation. I think if your expectations are aligned with reality, mediation can be an opportunity to see the other party's cards. It can give you practice presenting your case to a neutral third party. Ideally, it's closed mediation, which means what happens there stays there. When it's a recommending mediator, that means the stakes are a little bit higher. So, it surprises me how many people I talk to who are slated for mediation and they have no idea. That's where your investigation comes in. Find out, are they going to be issuing a recommendation to the judge? And then how much weight does that carry? Is that going to be an end all be all? Is the judge going to take that as gold and that's what the court order will be? Or does the judge just weigh that into the equation when he or she is making the decision? But if it's closed mediation, meaning just like Las Vegas, what happens there stays there, then it's a great opportunity to practice being in the same room with your abuser if you have to do that. Obviously, no one should ever have to. There are a lot of states that have, you can ask for DV protocol to be followed, meaning you get 2 separate rooms. But if you are in your healing process, and in a place where you feel you could do it, that's always the ideal situation, because you're going to have to sit in the same room. You're going to be breathing the same air as this person in court. And so ideally, it becomes a way for you to desensitize yourself to the process. I always recommend having a therapist in your toolbox. That, is anybody going through this type of situation should have a therapist to help them, because this is hard work, and the court system is not set up to recognize or understand domestic violence. And in fact, most professionals in the court system have 0 training in domestic violence. Jacqueline Franchetti has a bill right now in New York to change that as well. So really follow her work. Kira's champions, Kira Franchetti Foundation. But back to the question. You don't want to show all your cards. I would not want to show all my cards. I'd want to use it as an opportunity to practice, to see the other side's cards, figure out what things are not going to cause huge problems. Like if there's little things, who gets a 1970 car worth $2,000? Put that at the top of the list, because any of those little things you can check off and settle and resolve in mediation, the more time the court will have to focus on the big issues. So if I'm going into mediation expecting that we're going to fix everything, my my expectations are not in alignment with reality. I haven't practiced radical acceptance that this is a very unhealthy person who's not capable of negotiations because their driving force is control, winning, to hurt me. You can't negotiate with a terrorist, and that's a big, big part of it. Gigi says, I showed up at mediation and requested DV protections around the mediation. They kept us apart until the actual event. The mediator was gobsmacked. My case should have been flagged. Yeah. And, you're going to find so much of it comes down to who the mediator is. There are some really bad ones out there. There are some that come in with such a bias, whether it's very pro-dad or, father's rights oriented, which my disclaimer, I'm not pro mom or pro dad, I'm pro child. But the harsh reality in this system is that there are a lot of players who come in with a very strong bias and we're set up for failure before we even start the process. And so there is reality to that. And so a lot of it comes down to who the mediator is. You're going to find some that, their mind is made up, they're annoyed, they're calloused before you even step foot in there, because when you are working in an environment where all you deal with is people lying and fighting, it would wear on you. I give them some compassion for that. They also signed up for it. But mediation, just I used to practice the superhero pose in the bathroom beforehand. Whatever it is for you. I've had to excuse myself from a mediation because I got very emotional talking about my babies, and nature intended for me to protect them. And these people are trying to tie our hands behind our back and prevent us from doing that. And so it can be a very emotional topic. Mediation to them is a platform for manipulation. Absolutely. And it's a huge feed supply. They get such a feed supply. They have been studying us and scanning us since the minute they first met us. They know where our buttons are. They know where our triggers are. They know how to push those buttons or triggers at the right time. And so it is a huge feed supply. As confident as you can be, even if you have to role play and pretend you're an actress or an actor, that can be very helpful. Getting into the mindset, getting yourself centered before you walk into that room. I used to use the Calm app, and I would actually do like a 5-minute breathing meditation before I went into anything like that. Just sitting in my car or in the bathroom at the courthouse or wherever it may be for you. Kelly says, just did mediation last Friday. It was very good starting point. It was so helpful to have 2 different rooms. Yeah. So, and Kelly's in the DC chapter. And so if anybody does want to join the OMB chapters, just go to ombchapters.com. And we would love to have you in there. All right, everyone. Happy Friday. It's 7:30. I'm actually, right after this, I'm doing a call with a therapist office here in my area, a Zoom call, to help educate them on the reality of the court system. And that's where my heart is. And a lot of the work that I hope to be doing as I shift from one-on-one coaching to teaching and training, I'm going into advocacy. So I'm really excited about this meeting today, because we all know that the mental health professionals need as much training on this issue as our courts do. The courts are really looking for them to be the eyes and ears, and the majority of them, their training is that 2 parents are better than 1. no matter what. And I am a strong believer that is absolutely not the case. So, all right, take care, and I'll see you next week.